Alan Brogan sent in. McManaman dodging. McManaman scoring.
What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GEA Fan TV. Kerry are in the All-Ireland final. They've beaten Tyrone by 3 points at Croke Park in the All-Ireland semi-final. Here to review the game, of course, as always. But first of all, do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you haven't already. But yeah, guys, Kerry, they have, they're in the All-Ireland final. 3-point victory over Tyrone at Croke Park. It certainly didn't look like that at half-time when Kerry were 4 points behind, but some brilliant play in that second half by the likes of Stephen O'Brien and David Clifford, and Paul Gainey, Sean O'Shea had great games as well to turn this game around and get Kerry the victory. Of course, though, starting off in the first half, it certainly didn't look like that in the early stages. I predicted Tyrone to win this game just because of their sheer physicality, and I felt like their defensive display would be a bit too much for Kerry to handle. We certainly seen in the first half Tyrone were overturning Kerry quite a lot when Kerry were attacking in the final third, and Tyrone were just far more physical and winning the ball back and shrugging off some of the opposition players. The long ball tactic into Cathal McShane was working absolutely perfectly. He was able to peel away quite a lot from his man and kick some fantastic points in that first half. And Tyrone, all in all, were just far more composed in front of goal, and they were just by far the better side in that first half. One thing I didn't expect to happen, though, was Tyrone in that second half. The way they lost momentum, the way they just lost composure. There were times in that first half where they were very indisciplined. They were giving away silly frees in silly moments when they didn't have to give away frees, and that was ultimately what allowed Kerry to always still have a chance in this game. And Kerry specifically in that first half were struggling. They weren't quite getting the movement from their forwards. David Clifford was very much anonymous in that first half. Stephen O'Brien was very quiet as well, and Kerry just seemed to lack a bit of confidence. Perhaps all the talk about them not, the majority of these players having not won a championship game in Croke Park was maybe weighing a bit on these Kerry players, and Tyrone just seemed to have that physical advantage in terms of conditioning. But in the second half, I still felt like Tyrone were winning a lot of the physical battles, but Kerry just seemed to capitalise a lot on a 5 to 10 minute period where Tyrone just seemed to lose control of the game. Cathal McShane, who was man of the match up until this point, seemed to kick two very easy misses wide. Missed one from a free, missed another chance where again a long ball played into him. He turned his man but kicked what was a simple score wide. And Tyrone just seemed to lack composure a bit. They started giving the ball away in easy moments, and Kerry just started to pick up the pace a bit more. They were far more confident in taking the chances that were presented to them. David Clifford was now kicking some outstanding points. Sean O'Shea was starting to get more involved, and Tyrone just started to, or Kerry just started to have a bit more confidence and belief in themselves to go ahead and turn this game around. And of course, Tyrone then went ahead and gave the ball away in possession. It was picked up by Stephen O'Brien. They drove forward. Ball was played into Paul Gainey. Looked like he slightly overcarried it initially, but then he did play the ball back into Stephen O'Brien in the final third of the pitch. And Stephen O'Brien with a fantastic finish, behind Niall Morgan. Great finish from Stephen O'Brien, and Kerry just had the momentum. Then all of a sudden, Tyrone just seemed a bit shell shocked. They couldn't quite believe they were behind. And one thing about this Tyrone team is that when they do go behind, they don't like chasing the game. Tyrone are very comfortable when they're in front and when they're leading, but when they go behind, it's very difficult for them to turn it around because they have to go against the way they play in many ways. The way Tyrone like to play is, of course, keeping possession at times, waiting for the run of either McShane or Peter Hart. And Tyrone were struggling to do that because now they had to play the ball very quickly. And they struggled in many ways to try and break down what was a Kerry lead. Of course, they did have a huge opportunity. The ball was played from Cathal McShane into Peter Hart, and he fisted the ball straight at the Kerry goalkeeper in Shane Ryan. But of course, Tyrone at this point just couldn't handle Kerry's pace. Kerry started hitting Tyrone more on the counter attack because Tyrone had to push up a bit more. that allowed the space for Stephen O'Brien and David Clifford to kick more points. As a result, Paul Gainey started getting involved as well with some fantastic point taking. And Tyrone in many ways just lost control of this game. I feel like it really was there for them. But a lack of composure, a lack of discipline cost them in the final stages. And Kerry, you know, they stood up. They absolutely stood up. And, you know, Kerry are unbeaten in the championship this year. They have a lot of bottle, this Kerry side, you know, a lot more than I thought, in my opinion. We've seen them fight back against Donegal, and we've seen them fight back in this game as well. And they just seem to have an aura or an energy about them that teams find very hard to deal with at times, specifically when they get going. And eventually, Kerry just proved too much for Tyrone. And you look, listen, it's going to be a very interesting final when these two play, or when Kerry and Dublin meet each other. I will be doing a full in-depth preview of that, so do keep an eye out on the channel when that game comes around. Of course, I'll be diving into the All-Ireland hurling final this weekend as well, or next weekend, between Kilkenny and Tipperary. But do let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought. I always felt like Kerry had the technical ability to beat Tyrone, but I just felt like Tyrone's experience would have a bit too much, and this is the type of team that Kerry haven't come up against that often. And when they did play a team quite similar in Galway last year, Galway beat Kerry in Croke Park as well. So I just felt like Tyrone would have had a bit more ability in that regards, in terms of physicality, and their defensive display would be a bit too much. And I do feel like it was still there for Tyrone. They just let the game slip. They were their own downfall in many ways. Poor composure and passing in the final third as well. I think they had 36% conversion rate in the second half, so really poor compared to the 82% they had in the first half. So Tyrone very much masters of their own downfall, but huge credit has to go to Kerry, who stood up massively in that second half to turn it around. David Clifford in particular, you know, just some wonderful points he kicked in that second half, and Stephen O'Brien, of course, as well, stood up massively. Of course, Stephen O'Brien did pick up a black card, so we'll have to see what happens with him. I would expect that to get overturned, in my opinion. I think it would be a huge miss. I didn't see his black card against Meath. The black card in this game definitely was a black card, but I think it would be harsh for him to miss the All-Ireland final, but we will see what happens in that regards. But anyway, guys, do let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the game. And yeah, it will be Dublin versus Kerry in the All-Ireland final. The two most successful teams in Gaelic football history will battle it out in a couple of weeks' time. But from me, this is going to be the end of the video. My name is Aaron, and I will catch you all next time.